Blog Talk Radio.
Live from the nation's capital, it's Quintessential Listening, Poetry, with host Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram.
To another episode of Quintessential Listening Poetry Online Radio. I am Michael Anthony Ingram, and I'm here tonight with our very special guest, Brian Rihlmann. Brian, are you with me?
I am, Michael.
Great. Question for you. Do you think you were meant to be a poet?
Looking back now, I think maybe so. I was an only child, kind of a loner, kind of an outcast, I think, a little bit. So those things, I think, kind of contributed. I think maybe so. I mean, I never would have said that before recently, and I haven't really, I've been kind of dabbling in writing for years. I was trying to write a novel years ago, and then that got shortened into short stories, and then the last couple of years, even shorter still, into poetry. So looking back on everything that's happened, I mean, I could probably say maybe so.
All right. But what do you think, as you look back, sparked your initial love of poetry? What sparked the love of it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is pretty personal for me. I mean, I think I've really only been writing poetry. Like I just had an interview with my publisher recently, Nicholas. I don't know if he wants me to say his real last name, at Alien Buddha Press, who did he just had some interview questions for me, written questions, and I had told him that I probably almost read less poetry than any poet alive. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I haven't read a lot of poetry compared to a lot of people. So, I mean, like the stuff I was exposed to in school, I can't say that I really loved a lot. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but
yes, you are. Yes.
I got sober just over a couple of years ago. I was an alcoholic for quite a long time, and varying degrees of severity. And I think when I stopped, I started writing again, and it all just kind of came out as poetry, if that makes sense.
Oh, wow. Yes, it does.
I mean, I guess I shouldn't mind getting personal. I get pretty personal in some of the stuff I write, so I guess me saying that here is not that big a deal.
Not a problem. I'd like you to share. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just, I stopped drinking, and it's like they say, a lot of emotions come out, and I had to have a place for all that kind of madness to go, you know what I mean?
Yes, so, I do.
So it came out,
Well, why not share a piece of your work?
Okay. Well, since I was just talking about the whole drinking thing, I think maybe I'll read this one. This was actually one of the first, this may have been one of my first acceptances ever, and it was in the American Journal of Poetry, which was pretty cool. And it's just called, I think I might have wrote this like after I was sober like a year, and it's just called Sobering Up. And I'll read it. Sobering up takes longer than a day or two or a year, because it's not the booze you're sobering up from. It's the infinite radius of yourself now collapsed to a dot, a sharpened pencil point, wandering a vast blank page without edges. Years of fantasies about who you are, punctured and hissing in your face. As again and again we are dissected by the now unblunted edge of life's blade that slices us open, laying bare pools of darkness and pockets of light, the latter often more difficult to accept for dilated eyes used to straining through worlds darker than brown glass reflections or blackouts. It's the end.
So as you think about your experiences, why do you think poetry is important?
I think it's important for me. I don't know. It's kind of like for myself. I can only answer for myself, I guess.
Yes.
And I guess that's all you're asking for my answer for myself.
Yes.
Right?
Very much so.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of addicts, alcoholics, whatever. We're kind of obsessive people. You know what I mean? And for me, it's kind of a new obsession to replace the old one that I had. You know what I mean? So it gives a voice to to all the voices that are up in my head. You know, that want attention and yeah. Am I making sense? I don't know.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I mean it kind of got to let those voices scream a little bit. You know what I mean? And so that's what a lot of it is for me. It feels like it keeps me sane, you know, or as sane as I could possibly be, maybe.
All right. Well, when you think about being sane and you think about having those voices in your head, what are some of the predominant themes of your work?
I mean, I would say, I try not to write, I do write about, like, some of my, you know, wild days and stuff. I mean, I do write about that stuff, but themes, I mean, I write about a lot about the inner world, or if you want to call it the soul, or whatever, however you want to call that, the stuff that goes on in our heads that we're all kind of familiar with, all the little dialogues and things that go on. I find that fascinating, you know. And, you know, I write a lot about just different emotions, about anger and about relationships and heartbreak, and everything's kind of fair game for me. I mean, I also write about nature and the city, and I do write some. I don't write a lot of political stuff, but I do touch on it in society, and I don't really limit myself. I try and write about everything, just whatever strikes my fancy, pretty much.
All right. Well, share.
I never know what's gonna. What's that?
What's gonna happen?
Sure.
Right. Share another piece of your work.
Okay. Let's see. Give me just a second here.
Oh yeah.
About Sorry. What if I read? I'll read this one. This is another one that I sent to you. It's called Origin.
Yes.
I'll read this one. Yeah, I'll read this one. Okay. Origin. First they were outside. The words, the voices of parents and grandparents, teachers and counterfeit gods. There came words from other adults, from songs on the radio, from people on TV, from a barrage of ads for things I should have, shiny things that made people smile, and still more from the mouths of classmates in the schoolyard hurled like stones or sand in the eye. A blitzkrieg of them, suggesting, advising, commanding, criticizing. I should be this, I should be that. And then one day, somehow, the voices weren't out there anymore. They were in here, inside, closer than inside. Like the ringing of hammer blows as a mob of blind sculptors chiseled a beautiful stone down to a nub. End poem. And that one was in Mad Swirl, published in Mad Swirl.
Wow, very nice. How does a poem begin for you? Does it begin with an idea, a form, or an image?
I think it could begin with any of those. I tend to, a lot of times I build around what I think is, I'll have like an insight or what I feel like is an insight into something, and I'll try and construct something around that. I feel like a lot of my stuff is not, I don't know if it's not strong on imagery, but some poets are able to like just construct a story with, I don't know, I'm better with narrative type stuff. I kind of like to tell a story, you know. I'm not some people can tell a story with just by putting images together. I don't really feel like that's my strongest thing. But yeah, so it could start anywhere really. I have, I mean, everybody, you know, refers to it as the muse, and sometimes, you know, mine is. I feel like all I do is translate for her.
Oh wow!
She kind of hurls stuff at me. She's a little bit nuts, you know, and neurotic, and she kind of hurls stuff at me, and I just translate it.
Does she have a name?
No, I haven't named her. I'm kind of afraid of her a little bit.
Okay.
When I give her a name she doesn't like, yeah. So. Yeah.
How old is she?
Anyway.
Your muse.
I think she's a teenage girl, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I think she's a teenage girl. Yeah.
Where do you go to write? Where do you write?
Where?
Yes.
Like physical location or
physical location? Yes.
Oh.
What's the best place for you to go to?
Well, I mostly I mean, on the weekends I'm just at home, but like I work a regular full-time job, like 8 to 5, so, or 8 to 4. So I get up at like 4 every morning, and I'm usually at some coffee shop or another, or sitting outside the coffee shop in my car, latched onto their Wi-Fi signal. So, but, yeah, no, I do that sometimes because this one place I used to like, and I actually wrote a poem about this, which actually recently got published. In
oh wow!
Yeah, I can read that one too. Well, no, I can't because I don't have that one in front of me. I might be able to find it on here, but yeah, this place I like, they started like turning up their music, and like even where I was sitting in there with earplugs, it was bothering me. So I'd park right next to the building and sit in my car and tap out stuff on my tablet. But yeah, generally it's early morning in a coffee shop, and you know, in the darkest corner, most secluded corner in the place, pretty much. Yeah.
Well, when you sit there, and do you think through every word of every stanza, or do you write freely and allow the words to flow?
Definitely allow it to flow. I mean, I might start with an idea or an insight or an image, and then it's amazing to me. You know, when I used to hear, I've never really, like growing up, I never really thought of myself as like an artistic person.
Okay.
And so, yeah, not really, not so much. And so when I used to hear people talk about, you know, the artistic process or whatever, and they would say, like, oh, I'm just a channel for it or whatever, I would think, oh, that's bullshit, you know. But but I can't tell you how many times I will start with an idea and have an idea maybe where I want to go with it, and as I'm writing, it goes in a different direction. It really does, and I have learned to follow it. It usually turns out better than if I try to force it into whatever mold I had conceived for it to begin with.
Well, share another piece of your work, please.
Okay. I found this one. This one was recently published in San Antonio Review, and a lot of people seem to like this one. It was called Grandma's Journal. Hopefully I can get through this one. I found this journal among her things. She'd filled the first 5 pages with sloppy cursive, written in pain with her arthritic hands. I must read slowly to make out the words, slowly as she walked during those last days. She misses him. She should have known, should have taken him to the heart doctor sooner. He was her second husband and her last, and even after 25 years, she wonders if he loved her. She hopes he did, at least a little. She skipped a few years, and then another entry, still harder to read. She worries that my mom will never return from her trip to China, and about her son, the atheist, will she see him in heaven? More years pass before the last entry. A child's writing. She's 85, can hardly see or walk. If any of us finds this, she wants us to know God is real. Please believe me. I'm at the park reading this. I look up as an old woman with a walker shuffles along the path. She glances at me, looks away before I've got a chance to wave hello. I wanted her to see me wave, to see that I noticed her. I wanted to smile at her and maybe have her smile back at me. End poem.
That was beautiful, Brian.
Thank you. Yeah.
It really was. I really like that. And I can understand why other people like it as well.
A lot of people said that hit them pretty hard.
Yeah. Let's take a brief break and we'll be right back.
Okay.
We are back. I am Michael Anthony Ingram. I'm here with Brian Rihlmann. The telephone number is 646-787-1631 if you have a question for Brian. Brian, as you think about being a poet, all great writers have great writing influences. Who are some of yours, and what makes them great in your eyes? Who are some of your influences?
Well, let's see. I mean, I have had, I think, more prose writers influence me than anything, and I mentioned this also in the recent interview I did with my publisher, where I had said that I think I've been more influenced by like punk and hardcore and heavy metal music, but also I mean, that's poetry too. I mean, song lyrics are people.
Yes.
People don't realize. I mean, I know not a lot of people read poetry, but we're kind of immersed in it, aren't we, with music and lyrics and everything. But I mean, I was also influenced by, I delved a lot into philosophy and psychology when I was younger, and I studied religion. And this is just all kind of on my own, but I mean, I was influenced a lot by Nietzsche and Dostoevsky. But I mean, and I've been compared to Bukowski a lot, and I've actually read more of his prose stuff than his poetry, honestly. I've been influenced more recently by some of the poets I've met online. There's some really good ones I've met just on Facebook. I do like Robinson Jeffers a lot, and Raymond Carver, John Steinbeck. I love John Steinbeck. So yeah, and what makes them great? I mean, and also I should mention Dan Fante. He's great. Anyway, the writers, like, as far as, because a lot of the stuff I write, I guess you would call it confessional poetry. And
all right.
To me, that type. I mean, I guess that's mostly what I write would be classified that way. And to me, that kind of stuff is very, like, when I read a writer and they've told my truth or something that maybe I knew or thought I knew it, but I didn't know it, and then they said it, or they revealed something about themselves that, and you see that and you're like, man, that is so true, and I think that kind of thing is healing, and it makes you, it kind of lets you off the hook for being human, and so I like to write stuff that hopefully maybe does that for somebody else. Does that even answer your question? I don't know.
Yes, that was very profound. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Please share another piece of your work.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to read this one. This is a little gritty kind of thing about my barfly days, and this is called Bar Brawl Enlightenment. You may sit in the lotus position for a lifetime and never get it, but nothing brings enlightenment quite like a headbutt to the face when you're a dead drunk, a blow which nearly knocks you cold when you see the stars everyone talks about. Then having to fight your way from your hands and knees back to your feet while a crowd kicks and punches you, only to be grabbed around the neck and choked half unconscious by the muscular arm of the bouncer who releases you when he feels the blood from your broken nose pouring hot over his skin. After that, you know something about the world that you didn't know before. And
wow. I mean, your poetry is really precise, straight to the point.
I try. Thank you. That's a compliment, so thank you. Yes.
It is. It's very nice. You know, when you think about a poem, what are some of the prevalent ingredients that go into the concoction we call a poem? What makes up a poem?
Yeah, that's a good question. There was kind of a funny thing I saw on Facebook the other day. God, I shouldn't even bring that up because I can't remember what the guy wrote, but it was some ridiculous thing, and it got more comments than any poem that I've ever written has gotten on Facebook, because it was kind of poking fun of the idea of what makes a poem a poem. Anyway, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I don't know. I've wondered this myself. You know, when I first started writing, it was on a site called allpoetry.com.
Yes, I know all poetry. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't have my own website, not yet. Maybe I will someday. But so I have a lot of stuff up there still. That's where I started and started to get feedback from people. And I used to get called. You know, I used to write these little kind of narratives, and some people would say, well, that's not poetry, you know. And I used to think, well, who's the arbiter of what makes a poem a poem? You know, I mean, does it need like one simile, or does it have to have a simile and a metaphor? Is it then a poem? You know. Mm-hmm. So I don't even know if I can answer that really. I mean, I think it has to evoke maybe an emotional response, you know, and I think it has to be honest about that. I think it has to tell like an emotional truth. I think, or what's the point? I guess that would be my, I don't know. I mean, I like the stuff that does kind of hit you in the gut, you know. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I like. Yeah.
Well, do you think that someone could be a poet if they don't feel emotion strongly?
Sure. I guess you can fake it.
You can fake it.
Yeah. No. I
fake
mean,
it until you make it.
Right. Yeah. No. I don't think. I mean, that's just. I guess I'm just saying what I prefer to read myself. You know, something that. I mean, I heard somebody say that just speaking about art generally, and I don't remember who it was, but speaking about art generally, that you know, if it makes you, if you get a chill through your body or a shiver, or you know, like your body is a better judge of whether something is good or truthful or not than your head is. Mm-hmm. When it comes to reading, you know. So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff I like. But I don't think necessarily. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe I can't even answer that. Maybe I don't know. I wonder if somebody can answer that definitively. I don't know if it's possible.
Please share another piece of your work.
Okay. Let me find something here. Okay, this one, I'll read this one. This was published in a journal called Otherwise Engaged, and it's called He's Harmless. We've all seen them, those of us who live in neighborhoods where such things are allowed, that is. We've seen them as they circle the block, talk to themselves, smile, laugh at nothing, occasionally yell and scream or shadow fight with invisible demons. We say they're harmless, but we give them plenty of room, like we give those parts of ourselves that do these same things. We cross over, pass on the opposite sidewalk, don't make eye contact, you may want to talk a while. But then they catch us unawares. After we've wandered into some blind alley, they come close, too close, stare at us with big starving eyes like empty bowls waiting to be filled. End poem.
Your work is really deep. I continue to say that because it's true. It really makes you think about life and what's important and what's not important.
Right.
You know, poets hail from all over the world. Poets hail from all over the world. Where do you hail from?
I'm originally from New Jersey, northern New Jersey. Maybe an hour from New York City, where I grew up. So I was in the suburbs. That's where I was. Lived there till I was 15. And then did you want me to go on with that, or?
Yes, that'd be nice.
We came out, and then we ended up moving out here where I am now to Reno for a couple of years, and then we went back. And when I was graduated high school, I came back here on my own, and I've lived in some other places too. But I grew up on the East Coast. I think it's still a big part of me. I think a big part of New Jersey will always be with me, even though I don't care to live there anymore.
Does any of your work reflect New Jersey?
I don't know. You mean like I don't know that I've written too much. I don't know. I don't think I've written too much like about it, if that's what you mean.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I've written like 1,000 poems in the last couple of years.
Did you say 1,000 poems?
I'm sure. Huh?
Did you say you've written 1,000 poems?
In the last couple of years, yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
I told you. Yeah, I told you I was a little obsessed, and generally it's one a day during the week, and or at least one a day during the week, and several on the weekend. So say 10 a week, or that's about right. It's a little bit crazy.
What do you think?
And I have drafts. Like I have little pieces of paper. I have a box filled with little scraps of paper and stuff. That it's. Yeah, I was an obsessive drinker, and I am an obsessive writer. So, yeah.
Well, what do you think you've learned about yourself from writing so much? What have you learned about yourself?
Oh man, I mean, I can't even. A lot, when I first quit drinking too, I started. I should mention this too, because I think it's a big part of it, and I don't do it so much anymore. But I started meditating like a lot for a while, and I was doing this a lot, and that I thought it would calm me down, because I quit drinking and I had all these emotions and all this kind of rage and anger and craziness, and I thought it would settle me down. And it's kind of a double-edged sword, because it kind of did, but it kind of also really clued me into everything that was going on inside my head, and made me aware of all these little people that live in there, and man, they've all just got a lot to say.
Right.
But it's funny, if I met you on the street, I might not even talk to you.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Sometimes that's a good way to be.
Yeah. Well, I have a hard time. I have a harder time face to face with people. Yeah. So.
Wow.
But I forgot what your original question was.
I think I asked the question, what have you learned about yourself from writing so much?
Every dirty little secret you can imagine. But what I also learned is, from putting stuff out there on social media and these different public forums, what I also learned is, I kind of lay this stuff bare about myself, and then everybody, of course, as you would expect, so many people chime in and they're like, "Oh man, me too," or I thought I was the only one, or stuff like that. I get a lot of that, which is really cool, because that's
yeah.
I mean, people walk around with this weight on them, like the dirt is just theirs, and they're the only ones carrying it around. It's so not the case. Yeah. So, but I mean, I learned a lot. I mean, I learned that there's good stuff in there too, somewhere.
All right. Well, as you think about poetry, and we both love it, or we wouldn't be doing what we're doing, what do you see as being the role of a poet in modern day society? What's our role?
I mean, I think always to tell the truth as much as you can, be as honest as you can about what you see and what you feel, and especially, I mean, like I said, I don't write a real lot of political poetry myself. I do write some. I'm wondering if I got something here that I could read you along those lines.
All right.
Well, I'm kind of looking as I'm talking to you. I didn't have all this, but I mean, I think always to tell the truth, right? I mean, we got enough. Mm-hmm. I mean, we got politicians and corporations to lie to us, and everybody else to lie to us, right? So there's got to be a place to tell the truth and be yourself, and and to be free. And if you can't do that in poetry or in some art form, then where can you do it, right?
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I mean, I feel like I go through the day half the time. I have to, like, I'm kind of, I'm kind of nuts or whatever. So I have to, I'm like censoring myself all day long. So, there's got to be some place where I don't have to do that.
Right.
Here's one that's. Did you want me to read another one?
Yes, please.
This is not. I don't know if I'd say this is political, but this is sort of about. This came out right before the holiday season, and it's sort of about. I'll just read it. You'll know what it's about. It was published in Yellow Mama magazine, and it is called First World Herd. Open the gates and get the hell out of the way if you know what's good for you. You ain't dealing with starving third world refugees hungry for sacks of rice here, pal. This is the first world variety, junkies for electronic distraction from the cushy tedium of their lives, fiends for the things they've been groomed to want, happiness on sale for $99.99. They'll pepper spray you, trample you, cut your throat to get it. It ain't worth it for minimum wage, so get out of the way. Let them trash the place, but stand back, go home to your wife and kids. Don't make this Friday any blacker than it is already. End poem.
They say that to see the world with complete honesty, one should look to comedians, artists, and poets. What do you think emerges naturally from your work?
What emerges naturally?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm not. I'm a little confused maybe by the question.
Right.
What emerges naturally? I mean, hopefully. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't. I guess maybe I don't know how to answer that one.
Okay, no problem.
You did make me think though just now. If I can say something here, if that's okay.
Yes. Yes, please.
Yeah. I think I might have mentioned this too in my other recent interview. When you said comedians, I mean, George Carlin was like always a huge influence on me. So
all right.
I should say that.
I like his work too.
And he had. I mean, there's one way you could look at everything he said, which is not comedy at all. It was just like social commentary, right?
Yes.
So much of what he said. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
you think social commentary emerges from your work potentially?
Oh, well, potentially. Yeah, I suppose some of it, yeah. Yeah, I'm not really sure about that one, actually.
Okay. All right. Well, share another piece of your work.
Okay. How about if I read, let's see. I can read. Should I read the title piece from my book?
Yes, I'd like that very much.
Okay, I'll read that one. It's the title of the book, and it's the poem's Ordinary Trauma. I'll take nothing from those who've been there in foxholes and firefights, up to their elbows in blood, their ears filled with screams. But after these lives, where we're beaten by bigger, older boys, ridiculed by teachers, shouted at by bosses, after the cacophony of machine shops and construction sites, the jackhammers, the nail guns, the yellow beasts that strip the soil, even the more serene workplaces have their bells and buzzers, a million notifications a day, bony little fingers that prod us toward greater efficiency as we labor under looming robot shadows and insomniac camera eyeballs. We're goldfish in a tank surrounded by mad children tapping at the glass. Back at home, the neighbors slam doors, punch holes in the walls, scream at each other every Saturday night. A drunk wiggles his key in the wrong door, your door, at 3 a.m., then tries to kick it down. Lowrider bass thumps, cars backfire, an occasional gun barks in your neighborhood. Everyone holds their breath. A cop lurks in the alley with a flashlight. It's okay, sir, just looking for a guy. You lie awake, sleep through the alarm, arrive late for work. The boss yells again. Daily we watch as the earth is raped by sharp-dressed men with manicured hands and clean glass towers, as the country's wealth is looted by those with bloated bellies, their insatiable mouths still open wide, salivating. Are we supposed to thicken to all this? I am peeled thin and raw as a pink newborn. The dust stings my skin. And at the end of the day, we drink down the gasoline news chased with whiskey to stoke our fires. We stash guns at every door, one in the car, and tell ourselves, tell others, I ain't afraid of shit. End poem.
What was the process like of writing Ordinary Trauma, the book in general? What was that like? How long did it take you?
Well, let's see. I had probably, I wanted it to be at least half like new material. I'd say there's about, I haven't counted exactly. I know there's about 160 or 170 poems in it.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it's 200 and probably my next one will probably be bigger. It's like 210 pages. So, but I wanted most of those to be new, and 100 of them were, and I wrote those 100 in about 3 months, and then the rest were older ones that I added from like the All Poetry site. I just kind of went through that stuff, and yeah. So, I mean, what was it like? Well, I mean, it was just like an ordinary day for me now. I get up early and I get down to it every morning, and so it was just a matter of doing that, and then just putting it all together at the end was a lot of well, I didn't know anything about this. Is kind of funny. I had all these things in separate Word files, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then, of course, I was looking for somebody to publish it, and so I contacted my publisher, who became my publisher, and I said, how do you want me to send this to you? And he told me that basically they all need to be in one file, and I was like, oh, shit. So that was a lot of copying and pasting. Yeah. But now I know what to expect. I didn't know anything about. I mean, I should have probably realized, but yeah.
And Ordinary Trauma is available on Amazon.com, correct?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
One question for you: if you had to convince a friend or a colleague to read the book, what might you tell them?
Yeah. It'll save your soul. No, I'm kidding.
All right.
What would I tell them? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. You know, I'm maybe not the easiest guy to get to know. So, like, maybe even some of my friends, I might tell them, if you really want to know me, read this, because it's pretty much all of me is in it, I think. But I don't know. I'm not a good pitch man for myself, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
I understand. Well, we have a caller. We have a caller on the line. And let's see if we bring this person in.
Yeah.
Area code 504, you're on the air. Good evening.
Michael, Todd Cirillo.
Yes.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you? I'm well.
Hey, man, I do well. New Orleans is all right.
Great.
I'm
great.
calling in. Yeah, I'm calling in because I followed Brian a little bit, and he contacted 6 Foot Swells Press there a little while back, and writing some good stuff. And Brian, so hearing you talk about how much that you write, I wonder because, certainly I see you online and we've hooked up through social media.
Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I know you're Todd Cirillo. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Todd Cirillo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my question is, I'm wondering if you ever think about overexposure, because there's a lot of poets out there right now who, they're putting stuff up every single day. They're, there's almost no difference between a print publication to them and an online publication. And since you seem to be so productive, I wonder if you've ever, like you said, if your crazy mind has ever really stopped for a moment to think about the type of overexposure that would cause people to just, bypass anything new that they might see from it. Because there's some poets who put out, I've got 6 chapbooks out this year. Well, is that really saturating the readers? So, and I was wondering that because you've said you've just recently, come into poetry and, you're putting out stuff. So have you ever thought about that?
Not well. I know that there's poets I see on Facebook who, I like the stuff I put out. I'm on Instagram too and Facebook, and generally on Facebook I might put out something, maybe one thing a day. There's people who are putting like multiple things out every day, and I've noticed that, and I always see that and think that's too much. I think, you make a good point. Actually something interesting. I may be slowing down here anyway. I've noticed within the last few months, I don't know if it's me realizing that, based on my exposure to some of these other really good poets that I've met on Facebook, that I need to like up my game or whatever. I don't know if it's that, but poems take me longer to finish now than they used to. I don't know if I'm wanting to make them more polished or something. So like a poem, I used to be able to maybe spit one out in like an hour. Now it takes me a lot longer. I'm being a lot more careful maybe or something. That's not really answering your question.
It might be that teenage muse of yours saying, hey, pay attention to my dress, how pretty I look, instead of, Maybe. No, that's a good point, though. I do kind of get, fried myself with it sometime with trying to keep up, though. But, that's a good point. And, there's so many people. Everybody's got a voice now. With social media, there's a lot of good stuff, but there's a lot of bad stuff too, right? There's stuff that doesn't make any new poetry fans. That is true. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Have to mull that over a little bit. Yeah. Good show, that way, man. If you hold back, people would be more hungry for your stuff, right? Well, could be. Yeah. I was just wondering. Good show. I don't think I need to tell you to keep on writing. It sounds like you've got that part down. So I appreciate you calling in. Yeah,
yes.
Have a
good
one,
Michael.
Voice, Todd. Have a good one. All right.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much. All right. Yeah. And it is something to think about.
Yeah, it really is. Just generally, the internet has given people a voice that never would have had one before, right? So, it really is I think I actually wrote a poem about that, about the fact that I'm competing, and it may have been on a day when I was discouraged or whatever, because I posted something and I wasn't getting a lot of responses, so I wrote this other thing saying, what do I expect? I'm competing with look at all you're competing with. It's just insane out there, right? How do you get I've heard it called the attention economy. You ever heard that phrase?
Okay. No, it's brand new. Tell me more. Well,
just the fact that, in the online world, it's you're competing for people's attention, and it's just absolutely insane with it. I don't know what else to say about it, but you're competing with a lot more people for something that's limited. Because people don't have a lot of time. So if they're spending time reading you, that's kind of a big deal then, isn't it?
It is a big deal. And sometimes the whole concept around less is more is important too.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Something to think about, definitely.
Yeah, something to think about. Well, share another piece of your work.
Okay.
There's always room on this show for your work. So share another piece of your work.
Okay. This is, I was looking for this when I was speaking about the political stuff earlier. This is something I wrote, and it was published on Wine Drunk, a blog called Wine Drunk Sidewalk. And this was definitely a political piece. I'll read this. And it's called, It's Not Your Fault. If I was feeling charitable, I might say it's not your fault. You've been groomed for this, twisted into this shape by forces beyond your control. You can't be blamed for a lack of empathy. You can't be called a liar if you believe your own lies. And I believe you could pass a polygraph, I'm sure of it. They say it's common among those deemed batshit crazy. So it's not you, but the ones who saw their hopes and dreams for America reflected in that dog-ugly mug of yours, and now digging their heels while you spout invective they'd have lynched the previous guy for, and I mean that literally. End poem. Hello?
How has your idea of what poetry has changed since you began writing poems?
My idea of poetry changed since I first began?
Yes. How's it changed? Your idea of what it is and what it can do? Maybe it hasn't. Yeah, I don't know if it has, or I don't know really that I started out writing. I mean, I started definitely doing this just for myself, and I think that's. I think you do it for yourself first, and if you like it, that's great. I'm sorry, I'm freezing up here a little bit. That's all right.
I don't know. I don't know that I had any concept in the beginning of what it might do for other people, or I'm sorry.
So you're writing for self.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess now I'm not just doing it for myself. I mean, it's definitely gratifying that I have people. I mean, I was amazed when this book came out, and people were like, some people were emailing me and saying, "Hey, I want a signed copy," and I'm like, "Really?" I'm still kind of amazed by that. But there was quite a few that did, so I ended up, having to learn where the post office is around here, and and what media mail is, because it's a lot cheaper than first class. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I guess the reason I asked that question is that writers and poets write for a myriad of reasons. Some write primarily to speak a message to their audience. Others write because to stay silent is not an option. Maybe that's a better way to look at it. So why do you write?
I think maybe, I made a joke to somebody about this, but I don't really think it's a joke.
Okay.
I think I like to have the last word.
Okay.
And poetry's a way to have the last word.
All right.
But then again, you really don't have the last word. I mean, because people comment on it, and then you can go back and forth that way. But yeah.
Well, when people comment on your work, do you go back and change it, or it stands as it is? There are a few people that I trust. There's quite a few. The tendency for me is to want to go on. Like I'll end it, and then I'll think, oh no, I need to add this thing. And I should know by now that whenever I do that, one of these people that I trust will say, that ending needs a haircut. And they'll say, oh, this line ends stronger. And that's happened to me a bunch of times. And there's a gal on All Poetry that goes by Bangelin, and she was great for that. She'd always say, yeah, I think it would end better here. And she was always right. And that was always the original ending. She did that like several times. So I forgot again what your original question was. I just kind of rambling on. Let's take a short break, and we'll be right back.
Okay. All right.
All right, we are back. I am Michael Anthony Ingram. I'm here with Brian Rihlmann. The telephone number is 646-787-1631. This is Quintessential Listening Poetry Online Radio. Brian, please favor us with another piece of your work.
Okay. If I read this one here. This is from my book, and this is called A Can-Do Sort of Guy. I'll just read it. He was a can-do sort of guy, ex-military, West Point, clean-shaven and with the high and tight, all that. And yes, he did walk as though he had the proverbial stick up his ass. He'd fly in every couple of months and walk the aisles of the warehouse, chatting with the rank and file about safe subjects, things he'd gleaned about us through casual conversation. Since I had no kids and no interest in NASCAR, football, or politics, he had a tougher time with me. And on this particular day, I cringed when I saw him turn the corner and head towards me. After I'd shrugged and mumbled my way through several questions, he asked, "What's the matter?" I took a chance. You never knew. Maybe he had an answer. "I'm depressed," I said. His brow furrowed, deeper than any brow I've seen before and probably since. "You're depressed?" I nodded. He stared at me for a moment longer, like Kafka's cockroach, or as though I just sprouted a second head from the side of my neck, then did a crisp about-face and marched off. I listened as the click of his heels vanished into the low buzz of the overhead lights. Then I hopped back onto my forklift, laid my head on the steering wheel, and wondered how many hours till that first drink. End poem.
You know, honestly, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, he didn't either.
Again, another very powerful work. You know, all poets have several words that come up over and over again. Words or sentences that they just can't help but use in their work. What are three of your absolute favorite words to use?
My favorite words to use. I should have made notes for these questions.
Don't worry about it.
I don't know. I was just looking through. One of the poems I thought I might read that I brought up was, I seem to mention crows a lot. I don't know. Maybe that's like harbingers of death or something. I seem to write crows seem to pop up a lot in my poetry.
All right.
Shadows seem to pop up a lot in my poetry, and I mean, somebody else might even. I'm aware that you write so many poems, and you kind of become aware that you're telling the same story, or the same few stories, kind of over and over. But maybe you're making the point a little better, hopefully. That's another one. Oh, geez, I don't know. Yeah, I should have made notes. Sorry, Michael.
This is not an exam.
No, I know.
It's not an exam. This is you sharing your truth, whatever that is, the good, bad, and indifferent of it. That's all. That's all it is. I think there's a lot of in my poetry. There's probably a lot of gritted teeth and a lot of like shivers and a lot of knots in the gut and because life is kind of messy, and I find life very like messy and uncomfortable. I'm never quite at home like in my skin, and so I think my writing reflects that. So any of those kinds of things, there's always things knotted and twisted and grinding, and there's a lot of itching Okay.
Maybe not literal, but yeah. Anyway.
Well, do you have a favorite poem from your collection?
I mean, I think I probably already read some of my favorites. I have this one that I just, if you'd like me to read, this.
Yes.
I wrote it a while ago, but it's still. I think it's still one of my favorites. And it's in my book, and it's called Portrait. And it goes, "It was not you, but my fanciful brushstrokes on your blank canvas that I love. An abstract portrait, beautiful in its impossibility, loved even more because of it. But it was stripped from me by shifting winds like a kite that flew too high and snapped its string. It could not endure the storms and crashed to earth, tattered and broken. I knelt beside it, touching its torn edges, eyes brimming, gazing at its still vivid colors, wondering if it could be salvaged or sewn as you slipped quietly out the door." That's the end.
You know, some poets are also, it's very nice. All your work is nice. It's very thoughtful. You know, some poets are also active in other creative areas. What are some of your favorite non-poetry or literature activities?
I've been playing, I don't play that much anymore, but I've played guitar for 25 years. I played in bands when I was younger. Yeah. That was really my obsession at one time, especially in my early mid-20s. I was in several bands. I actually just got together with those guys. I should, if I have time to read. Do I have time to read one more?
Yes, of course you do. Yes, I want you to read.
Because I wasn't thinking about this. I have to find it. Where is it? Yeah, I got together with these guys just recently, my old bandmates, and I wrote this poem about them. And now I am trying to find it. Where did it go? Sorry, I'm looking here. Oh. Man, this is not good. I thought I had this up. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, this is about a recent get together with my bandmates. I don't even know if I titled this. I don't think it's out anywhere except my Facebook page. Okay, I'll read it. We sit around telling war stories and watching a grainy VHS tape of a show we played 20 years ago, while the 20-something kids grin and roll their eyes when we're not looking, and the grandkids play air guitar and bang their little heads in imitation of the guys on stage. Guys with less gray, guys who could play half the night and party till dawn, guys who had life firmly by the balls, guys who could get away with anything, who stole the reaper's scythe and ran away laughing. And is that us? A resemblance, yes, but as the night lengthens, as we stand in the driveway still talking after we'd said goodnight 2 hours before, it's almost midnight and we're tired. As I'm reminded of taking over a small town, how we terrorized the locals, how we arrived like barbarians at that spot on the river yelling and pouring beer over each other's heads, how we scaled the razor cliffs and jumped 50 feet into the icy green water below, and just how drunk and high was I. As I'm reminded of this and other crazy times I barely remember, I'm not quite sure, though they assure me it's true. I love these guys. They're like the living urns for the ashes of my immolated, completely taken for granted youth. End poem.
Wow.
Yeah,
I can listen to your work. You're an incredible artist. Incredible artist. Extremely prolific, profound, thoughtful. You know, when people hear your work, this is the very last thing that I'll ask you.
Yeah.
When people hear your work, they usually want more. I know I want more. What's next for you as a poet?
Well, I'm going to continue, and I have continued to submit to magazines, and every time I get published in one, I put that up on social media, and I'm going to, before the end of the year, I'll have another book out. So I just want to keep going. Thinking maybe I might try another novel someday. Now that I'm kind of disciplined and daily, I might. Yeah, I always wanted to do it, and I didn't have the discipline back in my 20s when I first tried, but now that I'm used to doing the process every day, I think I could probably do it now. And I didn't have, you know what? I couldn't have written anything good in my 20s or even my 30s. I don't think.
You don't think so? Why?
It was all pretentious bullshit.
Okay.
Basically, yeah.
Well,
so I'm just.
I guess I could ask this question then before we close. What is a measure of success as a poet? That's the very last thing I'll ask you. What's a measure of success?
I don't know. I think if you're writing stuff and people are reading it and they're telling you, like, man, you know, that hit me right in the gut, or, you know, you taught me something about myself, or you made them. I think it's great if you think you like I said this earlier already, but you know, if somebody tells you they thought they had this dirty little secret and it turns out it's not, and it kind of lets them off the hook for being a human being, you know, like we all are, because there's a million in this culture that we live in. There's a million voices telling us that we're not enough and that we're shit. You know what I mean? If you let somebody off the hook for that and they can breathe again and feel okay, you know, then I think that's the kind of success that I would want.
Well, you are a success, and I'm so glad that you're on my show tonight, and I'd like to invite you to come back again, if you'd like.
Oh, that's great. I would love to. Yeah, I'd love to. Sure.
Well, to our listening audience, I say good night, and I'll see you next week. So thank you for tuning in to Quintessential Listening Poetry online radio, and I'd like to thank Brian Rihlmann for being here. And you can find his book at Amazon.com, Ordinary Trauma. All right, good night, everybody. Take care.